Hi, thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to be reviewing the discussion between Richard Dawkins and Peter Singer. It was held in Australia. It's a podcast. There's no video to it. There's only audio on Dawkins' channel, The Poetry of Reality. I've put a link below in the description. So I do recommend that you listen to the whole thing. There were some interesting points discussed. There was an audience and there were questions at the end. So I'll be covering one of those questions anyway. So just to say, I'm going to be not going through the whole thing, just really reflecting on one or two things that were said. So obviously Singer and Dawkins are both atheists and they share the same views on a lot of things. I think they're about the same kind of age. I know that they both said that they'd met a particular philosopher at Oxford University, the logical positivist A.J. Ayer. They both, Singer took classes with him and Dawkins had actually met him, so I found that quite interesting. I know a bit about A.J. Ayer. I've read some of his philosophy. Now, I've got some sympathy with it, with the verification principle, for example. But yeah, just moving on. So yeah, so Singer was asking Dawkins about how far can science go? Can science explain everything? Because coming back to A.J. Ayer, who said that, what did he say? Sorry, let me just try and sort this out. Yeah, sorry. If something can't be verified, it's not really worth talking about. It's got no sort of substance to it. So the statement, I was kissed by the Holy Spirit, for A.J. Ayer, logical positivist, he would say that's a literally meaningless statement. There's no way of verifying it. There's no real way of verifying the terms or the meaning of the terms. It's more or less literally meaningless. Of course, there are other kind of statements that we could make that might be termed literally meaningless, but still they might well be valid statements. I mean, for example, the statement, Shakespeare is the greatest playwright in history. Okay, it's a subjective judgment, but it's probably got more validity to it. And it's probably more verifiable to an unsatisfactory degree, admittedly, than the statement, I was kissed by the Holy Spirit. So, you know, I don't go fully with A.J. Ayer's assessment there. I think that there are different kinds of statements, and you can't just rule out every class of statement simply because it can't be verified. But moving on, yeah. So the point is that Singer is asking Dawkins about science and can it explain everything. So that kind of fits in with verification, because one of the things about science is that it aims to verify a hypothesis and it becomes a theory. And there's lots in science. There are a lot of scientific discoveries that we now count as knowledge. We can consider that they've been verified, certain things. But can science explain everything? And Dawkins' reply to that was that if science can't explain it, nothing can. He did say it may well be the case that there are some things in reality, some aspects of nature which science may never be able to explain, or in which human beings, it may well be beyond the capability of human beings to explain. And I think that one of the things he mentioned is consciousness, and they discussed briefly a definition for consciousness, and there was some disagreement there initially, but Dawkins stated, I think quite correctly, that scientists have made very little inroads into explaining what consciousness is. Well, actually, which Singer says more of a philosophical question, but nevertheless, neuroscience has made very little progress in terms of explaining how consciousness actually happens in the brain, and he wondered whether they would ever be able to properly explain it. And this may be something that is beyond science, But if anything could explain it, it would be science. There are no other tools that could explain it. Which I kind of agree. I know that there are religious people who say that science can't explain certain things, but I mean, if science can't explain it, then, as Dawkins said, or implied anything else that offers an explanation for particular phenomena. For example, consciousness. Religion's answer to that may well be the soul, but it can't be confirmed, can't be verified. It's no kind of explanation, because really it's appealing to something which we haven't got any evidence for. And I suppose Dawkins would say that there are other tools, so-called tools, that can offer bad explanations, or explanations which are virtually worthless because they can't be verified, they can't be tested. So I would agree with that. Okay, then they moved on to, they were talking about, quite often we see Christians saying, okay, well, there must be a God because we're altruistic. Why would we do something when we've got no reward? Why would we help people at all? Why would we show empathy? Why would we show compassion? Why would people sometimes risk their life to save another? Why? There must be a God. Dawkins' answer to this is purely in Darwinian terms, that communities that had individuals who were altruistic, who helped each other, who cooperated, who showed compassion, those societies functioned better, they were more successful. And those where there was a lot of killing and murdering going on without any kind of legal redress, people were just allowed to do whatever they wanted, those societies were less successful, so they died out. And the societies, the communities that practiced altruism succeeded, and by natural selection. That's why that's why there's a lot of altruism in human nature. Of course, it's not universal, as we know, but by and large, people are compassionate and altruistic to their own species, if not to other species. So yeah, I thought that was quite a good kind of explanation, and because in counter-apologetics or in apologetics, Christian apologetics, we often hear this, only God can explain altruism. But no, we have a naturalistic explanation for altruism. Of course we do. So moving on to what I thought would be the really interesting part, is talking about animal rights and to what extent have animals got rights, and do they feel pain? And if they do feel pain, what action should we take to address that? So Dawkins agreed that yes, animals do feel pain, again in Darwinian terms, both animals and humans, and we feel more pain. The more dangerous the hazard, the bigger the pain. And Dawkins actually speculated, maybe with some justification, that animals actually might feel more pain than humans, because whereas humans have got the reason to avoid certain hazards, it may be more important because animals haven't got the same reason. It's more important for them to experience greater pain to help them remember the hazard, not to do it again. So I don't know. Singer was interested in that. He's recently written a book, and he said that he might have included something. He might have included something on that if he'd been aware of it. And Dawkins said, "Well, we can't confirm it. It's just a hypothesis which he's got." So then it moved on to what is Dawkins doing. So he's admitted that animals feel pain. He's against factory farming. He's against animal suffering, and he's previously said that only if an animal had led a good life and it could be slaughtered painlessly, would he consider it to be not immoral to eat it. And what's his current situation? His current situation is that he's a vegetarian in his own household. Outside of his own household, he says he doesn't make a fuss. So if he's out with friends, and there's no vegan or vegetarian option open. I presume that he would just eat meat. So Singer said he appreciated this step that Dawkins has made, said it's an important one. And I got around to thinking about what Dawkins was saying there, that it's immoral that animals should suffer pain. He said that is the case, so he would have to then consider that to eat meat is immoral. Well, especially as he's no longer eating meat in his own household, I would think that will be the conclusion that he's drawn. But what kind of sense does it make that he's ruled out vegetarianism in his own household when it's a matter of convenience, but it's inconvenient to be a vegetarian? It's inconvenient to be moral outside of his own household. And I thought about other moral issues, for example, slavery and rape. So, I mean, my opposition to slavery and my opposition to rape is complete. I've got no tolerance whatsoever to either. And I think that, for example, if I lived in a society where there was slavery and I decided I was against slavery, it's immoral, so I'm not going to have a slave in my household. But when I'm out and around, if I'm traveling, I'm not going to make a fuss. I'll use slave labor. That won't do. That really won't do. And I don't really see how it could do for Dawkins either to be a vegetarian in his own household on moral grounds and be immoral outside of his own household, any more than me not using slaves at home but using them when I'm out and around. It doesn't really make any sense. It would be also like, you know, rape is okay in some circumstances. I mean, it's not okay in some circumstances, but okay in other circumstances. No, rape is wrong in all circumstances. And Dawkins says that, what did he say? Yeah, he described it as a compromise of this thing about it's vegetarian at home, but when he's out and about, he doesn't make a fuss. And he kind of shrugged his shoulders and sort of apologized, saying, it's a compromise. How can you compromise on a moral issue like that? I mean, how could you compromise on slavery? How could you compromise on rape? How could you compromise on, say, child prostitution? It doesn't really add up, does it? So I'm surprised that a man of Dawkins' intelligence would consider that this is a tenable issue, and not only that, I mean, a tenable position, and also that Peter Singer would think that congratulating Dawkins on this step is a reasonable thing to do. He said he appreciates this step that Dawkins has made, and that for him, Singer said that it would be better if everybody did what Dawkins has done, rather than that 10% of the population of Australia became vegan. I think because for him, if everybody was vegetarian at home, there would be fewer animals suffering. But all the same, I can't really see that there's no moral consistency in Dawkins' position there. And it may well be that with Peter Singer being a flexitarian and eating meat when it suits him, it's like he said, if he's on an aeroplane, there's no vegan option. If they put a slice of pork in front of him, rather than it go to waste, he's going to eat it. And I don't think it's an invalid analogy. The slavery analogy is, I don't think it's invalid that if it's convenient, you're not going to make a fuss when you're out and around. Okay, I'll use that slave labor. No, I think that I think it's probably a valid analogy. So I don't know, really. I mean, I'm not making any moral claims for myself. So personally, I don't think I've got a case to answer, because I'm not making any claims. I'm not saying anything at all. All I'm doing is reflecting on what they're saying and trying to make some kind of sense out of it, and to find the consistency or inconsistency in what they're saying. That's why I'm doing this video, not arguing either for or against animal rights. That's not why I'm making this video. So Singer that's Singer's position. And I must admit, I was surprised when I heard that was his position. I was hoping, in fact, that there would be some disagreement between Singer and Dawkins on the issue of eating meat, but there wasn't at all, and which is a shame, because I think that Dawkins has got an inconsistency in his morality there to answer for, but his feet were not held to the fire at all. I mean, if anything, I suppose his ego was tickled or flattered. He was congratulated for making that important step. Okay, what else? Well, that's about it. Oh yes, just one more thing. This is a really important one. As you know, so Singer's a flexitarian, and I believe he eats eggs. He said he eats eggs, and he says that he can't see anything immoral. He can't see anything immoral in eating the eggs of happy hens. So by that, what he means is hens which are truly free-ranging. They're allowed out of the cage, the laying box during the day. They're able to free range over pasture, and in the evening they come back to their laying box, or they come to the laying box when they got an egg to lay. So he recognizes that these chickens will probably only live a year. As many of you know, chickens lay strongly for a year. Chickens bred for laying. They lay strongly for a year and then it tails off. They lay an egg a day for a year, and then they lay an egg every 2 days, and then in the third year an egg every 3 days. And really they're only useful, they're only economical if they're laying 1 egg a day, because of the amount of grain and everything else that they eat. Consequently, those chickens are killed. And a young man stuck his hand up and he said to Peter Singer that he has worked in these so-called happy hen environments where chickens are free-ranging, and he considers them to be highness. He actually said all the types he's seen that there are no real happy hens, and he's had to chase hens down for culling, and he considered these environments to be highness places. That kind of took the wind out of Peter Singer's sails. That clipped his wings a bit there, because obviously it's something that he's arguing that is okay to do, and he's got somebody there contradicting him and saying, well, they're not happy hens at all, and these are dreadful, still dreadful environments. Chickens do suffer. And Peter Singer had to admit that maybe he needed to do some more research, etc. Whether he will do that research is anybody's guess. So that's about it then. And just to wrap things up, for me the most serious thing that came out of that discussion basically was Dawkins' inconsistency. That he admits that something is immoral, and he's divided. He's somehow compartmentalized his home for being moral, and outside of his home he's decided it's okay to be immoral. And my only problem with that is that he's in no position to be saying that I'm against factory farming, I'm against this, I'm against animal cruelty, etc., etc., etc. I think this is immoral, I think that's immoral, all to do with animal welfare, because there's no consistency in what he's doing. And maybe the same with Peter Singer. So, I mean, when somebody is 100% vegan and they're completely, in that kind of situation, then it seems to me consistent to say, right, I'm against animal cruelty, I'm against factory farming, etc. Everything's consistent. But again, it's like saying I'm against slavery, but I'm going to use slaves when I'm out and around, because it's a compromise. It's a compromise for me not to have slaves at home, but I will have them when I'm out and around. So yeah, it's as simple as that. There's no consistency in the position. So there we are. Okay, let me know what you think. I'll be back again with another video very soon. Bye for now.